I spent nearly a decade behind bars, but prison for me didn't start with handcuffs. It started long before that. When they told me to sit down, shut up, follow the program, when they said that I was too much, too loud, too impulsive, too alive. I didn't know why I was like that. And if I'm being all the way honest, I wasn't willing to admit that I had a problem. I didn't ask for help. When teachers would say, you have ADHD, I think you should see this person, I'd say, no, I don't. And I tried my hardest to act normal, like everyone else, like all the other good students in the class. I tried my hardest to not be the class clown. I tried my hardest to be quiet. I tried my hardest to not be so impulsive, to not act off of instinct. It was hard. And most of the times it didn't work. I really thought something was wrong with me until I got locked up and started studying my mind. And after a lifetime of ignorance, school suspensions, lost jobs, broken relationships, when I found out I had ADHD while incarcerated, I had my bro, big ups to Vaughn, my guy. He sent me a book by Tom Hartman called A Hunter in a Farmer's World. And when I say that book literally changed my perspective, my outlook, my worldview concerning what was going on inside of here, it did just that. And that moment, it changed everything. When I got my hands on that book, when I started reading, when I started to study my mind and really take it serious, I saw that ADHD wasn't a curse. I realized that what they deemed attention deficit hyperactive disorder wasn't a disorder at all. It was my damn superpower. Let's break this down. Back in the day, I'm talking thousands of years ago, we were either hunters or gatherers, period. Hunters were wired different. Fast reflexes, constant scanning, ready to move. We had to track prey, stay alert, and be able to react in a split second. In those times, you didn't survive unless you were able to act on instinct. But then comes along farming, routine, repetition, patience. And society said, you know what? This is the new norm. And if you didn't fit into that little box, you were labeled a disorder. Here's where the stats come in. ADHD affects about 4 to 5% of people out here in the free world. But inside, in prison, somewhere in between 25 and 45% of inmates have ADHD. And those are those who've been diagnosed. Quite honestly, there's a lot of psychiatrists that are believing that it's closer to the 80 percentile of inmates that have ADHD. But sticking to the stats of those who have been diagnosed, that's still about half of the prison population. What is that saying? What do we even do with that? How come nobody is talking about this? Why isn't this being plastered all over the news, the media? This is an issue. Bigger issue is half the people never even knew they had it. That 25 to 45% who were diagnosed, like myself, in prison, never even knew they had it. No diagnosis, no help, just punishment. And yes, in most cases, we committed the crime, but we had no idea that we had ADHD. We had no idea that we were even hunters trapped in a farmer's world. Let's bring some science to this. People with ADHD, like myself, our dopamine levels are low. Dopamine is that chemical that helps you stay focused and motivated. Farmers get enough of it from planning, from routines. This is how that works, right? So you have the thalamus, and I want you to picture the thalamus like a faucet. So those without ADHD, or those on the other side of the spectrum, which would be TSD, task switching disorder, those who have a hard time switching tasks, which means they have an easy time keeping to a task, they get a steady flow of dopamine. a steady flow of adrenaline. Those with ADHD, it's just drops of adrenaline and drops of dopamine coming out of this faucet. And it does two things. One, on one hand, when we have to do something that is something dangerous, something that is unpredictable, something that is spontaneous, impulsive, in order for that faucet, that valve to be opened and the adrenaline to be released. And for us, it's like, I'm breathing for the first time. It's like a breath of fresh air. Those with TSD or those without ADHD, they receive this steady flow of dopamine and adrenaline, which is why someone with TSD, task switching disorder, if something happens and something dangerous happens, you hear the term fight, flight, or freeze, right? A lot of people say fight or flight. You forget about freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. Well, it's not they're scary and they froze because they're afraid, right? That's not it. They're built that way. They're receiving a steady flow of adrenaline out of this thalamus, right? This flow of adrenaline, if they receive any more, they lock up, they freeze. Those with ADHD who are receiving just a little bit out of that faucet, that valve, when something dangerous happens, that valve releases, opens up, and we get a good flow, a steady flow. We get what they've been receiving for the first time, and we can go into action. It puts us into focus. So we can focus on a dangerous situation. We handle it in a different way. We're just wired different. Not broken, just wired for action. Dopamine is that chemical that helps you stay focused and motivated. Farmers get enough of it. They can go on with planning, routines for long periods of time because they get a steady flow of this. But hunters, we need adrenaline, pressure, risk. That's why you feel most alive when your back is against the wall. Why so many of us in prison didn't even feel normal until we were in survival mode. That deadline, that fight, that rush, it spikes our adrenaline, and suddenly the fog clears and we're focused. Your thalamus, that part of your brain, filters distraction. Instead of blocking out the noise, it lets it all in. That's why it's hard to focus in class or with people talking over each other. It's kind of like having 100 radios playing all at once. That overstimulation, it pushes people to self-medicate. Or that understimulation pushes people to self-medicate. And that's why 50 to 75% of people with ADHD struggle with addiction. It ain't because they're weak. It's because their brains are starving for balance. You ain't stupid. Those who are watching this that have ADHD, you're not stupid. You're not lazy. Your brain is just built for a different environment. A hunter's environment. Let me talk to those who are still locked up because I know that quite a few of you will be watching this from the inside. Let me talk to you for a second. You're not crazy because you feel like you can't fit. This system in all reality wasn't designed for you to win. This system was built for farmers. Slow and steady, obedient, routine, what we consider boring. The type of activities that make us want to cut an arm off as opposed to engage in. You, like me, you were made for movement. You were made to adapt. You were made to hunt. The real challenge is learning how to hunt in a modern jungle without getting caged back in. You got to build structure without becoming a slave to it. That's what I learned. I learned that on the inside. Once I discovered that I had ADHD and I learned what areas individuals with ADHD strive in, emergency room, high pace, right? Paramedics, police officers, soldiers, entrepreneurs, any form of creative. Some of the most talented and creative people you will ever meet are incarcerated. These individuals, in most cases, have ADHD, and a lot of them don't even know it. But these are areas that we thrive in. So when I learned that this was an area that I can thrive in, then I sought to do everything I could to be creative. I couldn't be a police officer in prison, of course. I couldn't be a soldier in there. Well, a different type of soldier, yes. But if I was trying to make it out, I had to even let that go. I couldn't be a paramedic, but I can be a creative. I can create. So I started writing books, self-help books, novels, philosophical books. And when I was in that realm of creating, it was the most invigorating thing that I've ever done, the most invigorating feeling that I have ever had. And that's what I became addicted to. When I would sit inside of an office in front of an iMac for hours and hours on end, writing articles, creating, playing with words, it was a breath of fresh air. These type of things is where we thrive at. But without this information, without this knowledge, they were just hobbies for us. I had been playing with words since I was 9 years old. I wrote my first rap. I'll give you the line and don't laugh, or you can laugh, whatever, right? The first line that I ever wrote at 9 years old, and I thought it was the livest stuff in the world. I said, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I'm not a lion, but my rhymes are ferocious, right? That was the first time I played with words. Even back then, I had ADHD. I didn't know it. I knew I felt alive when I was writing music, but it was just a hobby for me. I knew that the majority of people who write music don't make it. There's just a small percentage, especially prior to the advent of social media. So it was just a hobby. Writing was a hobby. I had to work. I had to enter into a farmer's world. I had to be a part of mundane routine and activities. The stuff that made me want to cut my hand off to just feel alive. You got to build structure without becoming a slave to it. So I was able to build this structure or enter this structured environment where this is your work hours. You come in, we need these articles written. That was structure for me. And that gave me everything that I needed, because we need structure. But we need structure without becoming a slave to it. I had the freedom to create. I had the freedom to write. It was my words. It was my creation of sentence structure. It was my voice on paper. So whatever it is you have to do, find yourself in that lane. Enter that vein. I'm speaking to you, the incarcerated. You gotta find purpose before desperation gives you another adrenaline hit and you end up back in prison. You have to find purpose. You have to find your full potential. We'll phrase it that way because that is more defined. Purpose is kind of ambiguous in so many ways. No one knows their purpose, but you can find your full potential. And we will cover that in another episode, full potential. We'll have a whole episode, probably an hour podcast on it. It's a lot of information. But for now, know this. Start asking yourself those questions. What is it that I desire to do? What do I love to do? What can I do that I would really enjoy and I wouldn't even consider it a job? Now I want to talk to the families of those incarcerated. Listen, this is for you. Your loved one isn't lost. They're not hopeless. They're wired different, not worse, just different. So it's going to be up to you to encourage them to find their path, not just follow somebody else's. We don't need more zombies in uniforms. We need living people who've made peace with their minds. We need warriors. We need hunters, because over half the people you see behind that glass, they're fighting battles inside their head that they never got help for. And to the ones out there that think they're free just because they're not behind bars, wake up. Some of y'all walk around in these mental chains, trapped by comfort, afraid to take risks, miserable in your 9-to-5s, but too numb to break out. That ain't freedom. That's just a bigger cage. I've been out of prison for a little over a month now. I just had the opportunity to have my kids out here, a lot of healing, a lot of fun, I have a job under my belt. I have a documentary crew filming my journey, but I'm not celebrating freedom because a gate opened. I'm celebrating freedom because I finally understand who I am. ADHD didn't ruin me or put me in prison. Ignorance did. Now that I know what I am and who I am, a hunter, I don't chase destruction anymore. I chase my full potential. I see it as clear as the bluest sky with the brightest sun. I see it. I know my full potential. I know what lane I'm supposed to be in for the first time ever in my life. And it's so freeing. So if you're listening to this, remember, you're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not trash. You just built different. You built for the hunt. Use your brain. Learn the system and beat it. And never let anybody convince you you're less than. Never let anyone tell you you have a disorder or that you are deficient. If this message made an impact, then share it with somebody that you know fits the mold. Share it.